Hello. Hello. I want to do a live stream this morning before I leave for my vacation to the Black Hills, South Dakota, the best of the Dakotas. Sorry, Father Big Mac, you're not going to watch this anyhow, but South Dakota is the best. Up coffee roasters. So, I may have to stop my screen or dive out or do something else as my kids get up and meander around a little bit, and I have a bunch of things to do and probably can't really fit this in, but whatever. Tayo's here, the great leader of the overnight 24-hour live stream, which I would love to go back and watch parts of it, but you can't watch any of it on YouTube. You can maybe go on Twitter, I suppose, and watch it. I don't know. If you can do that, let me know. Let's see. A few little updates that I think are cool. Surprisingly, when was it? Yes, 2 days ago, I think. I saw that our very own Ron, good morning, my friend, our very own Jacob Chattahoochee, way down yonder on the Jacob Chattahoochee, had T. Grogan on his channel, which was really great, and it was interesting, and I was very happy to see it because I said they brought up at one point in there, they're very Jacob's corner of the corner is a much better fit for someone like Jacob because it is very more logic, rationality centric, and the thing that I always struggle with T. Grog, and I even see in his comments, is it's you can't reason with a rationalist that rationalism is irrational. You cannot. There is no way to reason with a person that the seer is fundamental to everything that's seen. And this is why I've always liked Barfield, because the book Saving the Appearances is the best book that I know of out there. I don't know. Maybe the work of Michael Polanyi can really get there. Aspects of like the tacit dimension, and Jacob is right. A lot of Grog's struggles with conversations that happened in TLC or debates that we all had 5 years ago and conversations that we had. But this is also part of the problem of initiation, is you can't see anything without initiation. Anything. I mean, anything. Physically, you can't see anything without being initiated with your eyes and your body. That's the whole. Another way to say that is what you see and hear depends a lot on where you're standing and the kind of person you are. And if you are not the right kind of person and you aren't standing in the right place, you're not going to see certain things. It's why a referee in a sporting event needs to move and stand in certain places to see certain things. And that's a very obvious example, but that just everywhere. You won't see certain things if you're not standing in the right place, and if you're not the kind of person to see the right things. Bumblebees see different things than human beings see. We see different, you can explain it scientifically because we have different kinds of eyes, we have different kinds of capacities, we see different frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum, and the dude just doesn't see that. He just doesn't see that. And morning. Oh, Mandy, the Hate on Grail Country, my favorite corner of the corner. Yeah, Jacob. Well, even he spoke of Grail Country and he spoke of me, and Jacob loves to think that I'm a basket of contradictions, and in a way that I am. I mean, that's the call it whatever you want, Hegel, Maximus. Again, the name, what's in a name? I'm not going to get caught up in a name, because unless you're using a name iconically and realizing that languages and words are polysemous, and that, Ted S., his talk at the Poetry Convivium, the Arkansas seminar, which I often reference, is language does not have a one-to-one correspondence. It has a many-to-many correspondence. And it is not arbitrary. Language is not arbitrary. It is embedded within historic context, culture, all that, but it's not one-to-one. Anybody, I mean, and Jacob knows this. I mean, anybody who knows multiple languages and is involved in translation knows that language is not one-to-one. You know, it's just, it doesn't work that way. And you can't explain that to people, which is why I love my, you know, I'm sorry I cannot explain the thing to you. I would barely apprehend it myself. And then the fact is there's nothing in you for apprehending it. That George MacDonald quote from Lilith that made me break down crying, whatever, 10 years ago. Because I was like, that's most of my life. I can't explain it to you. Language is literal? No. I mean, yes, but it's a lot more than literal. It's a lot more than literary. It's language is ontological, probably, is probably the most fundamental way to say it. It's more fundamental than epistemological. It's ontological. And your relation to that depends on your perception of things, you know? So anyhow, that conversation was good. Tigro wore an incredible shirt. It was a nice shirt. I actually went, it was really great. I went out with my son yesterday, shopping, doing some thrifting, because that's another thing I love. I maybe don't have as good a style as Chezi, but I wish I did. And I would love to. It's just something that I don't devote a lot of my current time to, but I have here. I'll show you. This is a good insight into my being. Can I show it? Yeah, this is the only picture I have on my phone that's important. This is okay. That's a lot of reflections. That's little Luke. Can we see it? Little Luke. And you can't really see the color, but it's a so great. You can't do this on YouTube. That's too bad. But dude, I was not to go live. I'm glad you are. Sorry, dude. Am I stepping on your toes? Or you weren't going to, so I'm glad I did. So this is a, oh God, can you see it? How do we, there you can see it if I hold the angle enough. It's a white jacket. Oh, going dark. And a peach suit. It's so good. And when I was a little kid, this is how dramatic I am. And this is why I'm the woo man. And I identify as female, or like a flashy Hispanic or black man. That's back when my family was really poor. That was like in a single wide trailer. And for some reason I saw this peach suit and I was like, I had to have that. I had to have it. And my poor father, I don't know, somehow I ended up getting it because I'm either whiny or persuasive or something. And ended up with that peach suit, and I was just pleased as punch, pleased as peach. And I love clothes. So anyhow, yesterday, my son, or he had asked me a few days ago. So one of the things that, again, my wife is brilliant. One of the ways that she has decided to help and train our kids and initiate them and prepare them for life is they have their own checking accounts, their own money, and we give them money every month for theoretically helping around the house and chores and things like that. But then there's certain things they have to pay for. You know, we just don't give them money randomly and arbitrarily. We give them money every month and then they have to manage it appropriately. So like their school clothes and things. Yeah. Peaches. That'd be great if my Whitestone name was Peaches. Welcome. That would be, there you go. Just waterworks. Well done, Peaches, my faithful servant. Enter into, what does he say? Enter into my glory? No, enter into my peace or something. What does this mean? Queer coded. I don't even know what that means. And where was I at? Oh, so we give them money every month to manage, and my oldest is learning how to manage it by not door dashing food so that you get like cold Chick-fil-A or something ridiculous for 4 times the price or whatever it is. Bad use of money. And putting gas in the car that he uses to drive, and etc. And so all of that has made him be like, oh, thrift. And he has met a few friends where going to thrift shops and stuff can be cool. And I like that kind of thing because that's what I do. I either buy things that are really nice, not made by slaves, quality ingredients, made to last, the buy forever kind of stuff. Things, Marie Kondo, things that bring you joy, things that give you soul points. I either buy stuff that's like that, which all those things are pretty much expensive unless you're really lucky and happen to find them somewhere in like a yard sale or, or unless you devote a ton of time to finding them. Or I buy used things or thrifted things or consignment things. And so we went out to a couple local consignment shops. One was a little bit of a nicer consignment shop. It's a curated consignment shop. And then we went to just some lower end, just generic consignment shops. And we found some great stuff. He found some cool jeans, which was nice, that fit him really well. And we both found a bunch of cool shirts that I'm going to wear on this trip. And they're going to be fantastic. Who's the Luke Thompson of basketball? Not really Michael Jordan, Mark, because Michael Jordan's mean. I'm not that mean. Michael Jordan is like the Philo Nikea for sure. Nike. I mean, he's like he's like winning at all costs. Sacrifice relationships for winning. Yeah, that's not how I am at basketball. But he's great. So yeah, it doesn't make sense. I'm not really the Michael Jordan of live streaming then. Who would I be? I'll have to think about it. Yeah. Mike Conley. LeBron? No. I am huge and tall and jacked like LeBron. Not true. So we went out shopping, got some good deals, got some good shirts. I should show them. Should I show the shirts? Let's do it. This is how I live stream. Okay, here we go. Look at this. Isn't that nice? And you also can't get the drape and the feel of the fabric. This is linen, obviously. You can see it. And it's a nice, just short sleeved summer shirt, It's fantastic. That's number one. That was it's a brand new shirt too. It had tags. That was at the higher end consignment store. That's my most expensive shirt that I found. It's still consignment. A haul video. See, this is why I self-identify as part woman of the corner. This is like a fashion. This is a fashion segment of the corner. We're breaking ground. Who has done this in the corner yet? Not anybody else, I don't think. Look at this one. This reminds me of Alan. Is Alan here? This is like Alan's black shirt that he wore the other day that was fantastic. It's just, whatever. I'm an Enneagram 4. I like clothes that aren't boring, that are cool. I also like floral patterns. So get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Oh, man. So look at that floral one. It's just nice. What I would love to get is just like I saw this guy once with this. It was a jacket. It was like a sport jacket, but it was just like roses. So good. Now we're talking. Alan with an E, you sweet man. Mandy, what did you say? That you rest my case? What is your case? Make your case before you rest it, please. It's like it's like a bread. You haven't even made the dough to rest it. So make the dough first. Okay. And now this one I'm also very excited about. Okay, this is a good one. Now this is like an old school, see? It's a Levi's. It's an old school, like super old Levi's shirt. And it look at these buttons. Like these have old, can you see them? There's like, I didn't even put the stream out. Oh, Tayo, you are like, you have admin privileges. You can come in whenever you want. Peach's pink finger. Yeah, this is my wrap to protect my finger. It's almost healed that I cut off making coleslaw. But like, they have like a Levi's in the button. Oh, I should show you the buttons on the other shirt too. There's subtle ways you can tell quality. And again, it takes initiation to tell quality shirts. But this shirt is awesome. It's pink. It's got a tail on it. It's got also this little, like, modern, authentic Levi's. Like, this shirt is, because I found this at like a cheap thrift store. That would sell at that higher end consignment store for probably, guessing, you could sell it probably anywhere from $30 to $50. It's just such a great find. Oh, I didn't even show you look at the stitching in that arm. So dope. Dope. I don't know that dope's a cool word. Oh, Teo came on just to like manage the chat. Thank you, Teo. You are a hero. You're a hero of the people. You know, you're my Scottie Pippen. You're my live streaming Scottie Pippen. Now I need a Dennis Rodman. With all those shirts, you can see I'm maybe a little bit more of like a Dennis Rodman. Also just, Dennis Rodman, God, that guy's an interesting cat, isn't he? Didn't he date Madonna for a while? Couldn't handle that. I don't even know what that means. I could sell chocolate kettles to Luke. Is that a British thing? Is that a British idiom? Anyhow. All right, the worm, Rodman. Okay, so where was I? Holy cow. Thrifting, done for a while. Oh, I got a bunch of old jeans too that I'm gonna work for work jeans. Because what I'm gonna do, I got these old work jeans. I'm gonna cut them off. I'm gonna make jorts because I need jeans to like hold my tape and my knife, and they're just more functional. But I gotta wear shorts. So, I'm not gonna have white legs. We gotta get a tan. We gotta expose ourselves to the elements. It's also hot in the summer. So, Ty, where'd you go? And then hopefully my daughter can hem them so that they don't fray all over the place. But I got like a bunch of good old jeans for like under $10 or around $10. One of them was over $10. That's a great deal. Great find. Great work jeans. Okay, what else happened recently in the corner? What's going on? I feel like there were some other things that I was wanting to talk about. I can't think of anything. I'm going to open this up so that people can come into play. I have a heart out in a half an hour because I got to go get my hair cut. I think I'm going to go with another mullet. I think I had a mullet for a while. I got to get it off my ears. You want to go summery, but I got to leave the back long. I got to let that grow long to protect my neck. I have not watched the combo with Corey yet, though, Chad. I perhaps will on my trip. David, welcome. While I'm driving in the car, while my kids are listening to their own music. Together. I don't say queer. What? You call me queer?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
I can. You're a little quiet, but I can hear you.
Okay. So queer-coded, for me, do you know what queer-coded means in media?
No.
Okay. So this is fun. So before characters were allowed to be gay in things, they would do things that are queer-coded. So an example of this is several Disney villains are very obviously gay. they have some very gay Disney villains. So Ursula is designed after a drag queen, and when she has her electric eels, they go on her arms like a feather boa. So she's already queer coded, and then these like things go around her, where it's just like they were upfront that that's what they designed her appearance.
Oh, so they were upfront. So it was intentional. I'm trying to figure out how much of this was intentional and real versus just retroactively imposed upon.
But then it becomes a thing more and more, where like you've seen The Lion King, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So Scar is slightly queer coded as well, where it's just like one day Simba will be king, and he like bites his claw and goes, then I shall have to practice my curtsy. Right? Like this is what the term queer coded means. It's when a character was not outright gay in text, but in subtext, everything they did, all the actors talking, were like, this guy's clearly gay, right? But I refer to myself as queer coded for exactly the same reason. This is not as nice of a shirt as I wore yesterday, but I'm like, no, I'm a flamboyant heterosexual, and I accept that.
Yeah, what's so weird about a lot of that is I feel like the hyper masculinity and the blurring of all those lines, it's almost gotten to be like our idea of masculinity is so narrowed into a caricature that's just well, if a guy has fashion sense and gives a shit about aesthetics, like he must be gay to some sense.
No, exactly. That's queer coded, where you're just like, or in comics it's become a thing because two characters who are best friends are now rewritten to be gay. So, and it is very upsetting to me because I'm just like, okay, we have no place for male friendship. Like literally no place for male friendship. If two guys are willing to die for each other, they must really, really want to make out. Like that's the only way people can understand it.
Yeah, that's true.
Stephen King actually addresses this as one of his latest short stories in this new book that he just released called "You Like It Darker." And it's there's a story of two male friends who are male friends for their whole life, and they both are given this gift of talent because they end up helping some alien creature, and like they address this gayness thing where like people would ask if they were gays, like no, we're just like we're men, we're male friends,
and they're like, what? What's that?
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, David and Jonathan.
But it's also because I think those identities are no longer like validated and reinforced in that like you need male friendship for the world to work. You need people to be able to come together and form these bonds and identities. And as I've spoken a lot about the summer camp I worked at, but yeah,
Gay.
It's extremely gay. That's what I was gonna say.
I really think we lost that word. That is such a good word to describe so much.
Gay. So gay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, this is such a waste of this intimacy they have. Like, it needs to come to its fruition. It needs to reach its telos. It's just like, no, the telos of male friendship is not homosexuality. It's like the male friendship is there because you need men.
Fight.
What?
Fist fight, yeah. I think Cassidy, I think we've spoken about that, of just like the extreme sexualization of our society. It's that like what can be the ultimate thing? I guess it's that people have sex. Like that's the ultimate thing of everything. Well,
I guarantee people think everyone else is having more sex than they actually are, because that's all you see on entertainment.
I'm having that much. Trust me.
But it's just funny to me because there's this sense of like, watch all the TV shows. Why, like, what is the sense of purpose moving towards relationships?
Yeah.
And it's always wrapped in this idea of like sexuality being a part of it, which is really only a small part of the story. But I don't know.
Well, and homosexuality is always revolving around. It's like it always boils down to the sex talk, which is always really weird to me. It's like, although I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. It's just weird. It's weird. Like, so first of all, as it relates to the television stuff, like I'm totally creeped out by, like I don't like when things like that are like pushed in my face, like the dudes making out or the chicks making out. But also, I don't like when like the hetero stuff is happening either. It's really annoying. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, you don't have to, because I don't know, there's some like huge romantic comedy the last year that I actually watched because on Netflix, I don't know, I can't remember her name, some it girl. What the hell's the name of that movie? Anyhow, it's like a prominent romantic comedy the last year, and we watched it, and it's so sexualized that it's not even that good. It wasn't that good, you know? You can have a
The
part
one
of
with
it.
the
Like, make
blonde
a good
girl.
Huh? Yes.
The one with the blonde girl, like Closer to You, or I
Yes.
don't know. I never watched.
It's not good, so you don't need to watch it. But I'm like, make a good romantic comedy like The Notebook, you know? There can be a little sex in there, but it's also, there's more going on. You want to like, it's about the romance of the self-sacrifice of her completely forgetting you and you going every day and rekindling that and then dying together. Like, that's more romantic. It's very romantic and it has Ryan Gosling in it. Other guy, like B-class Ryan Gosling. Get out of my face.
Well, Luke, I think that you and I have a pretty good hetero bromance going on. I've been calling you Pookie for like, I don't know, 3 years now. You know?
Yeah.
And if I found you, I'd probably slap your ass and give you a hug once in a while.
Yeah, we would do some of that kind of like gay-y, fringy stuff, but not be gay together.
When I was in high school, I used to refer to my like best friend as my hetero life partner because like I had monogamous friendships where I feel like when I was in grade school, there was one dude that was like my partner in crime that I did everything with. And then it like switched to a different dude. And it wasn't like a group of friends. It was like, I don't know, maybe this was partially me. I had his group of friends, but there was like one person that was like my best friend. Have to say no homo after.
It's just so, like, even saying that is so dumb. It's just like, why is that the assumption? I have a really good friend who's originally from Nigeria, and it's not Tayo ethnically, but he's from like Nigeria. Tayo, I don't know. Tayo must have grown up in the UK because he has the accent. But this friend would say in Nigeria, guys would always, like, you'd see guys walking down the street all the time holding hands who are just friends, you know?
No, ain't gonna happen, bro. Sorry.
Yeah, that's not an American thing. They'd just be like, listen, we could have this whole conversation and be like, yeah, it's fine. And then just be like, but that's too intimate. Like, we can't even hold hands with people we are having sex with.
I think part of the interest in the gay thing is that gay couples are like the most extreme version of masculine and feminine. And like,
go on.
Well, if you take so you have communities that don't have the regulation of the other sex. And so if you look at how gay people look at lesbians and how lesbians look at gay people, it's fascinating because it really is how men and women look at each other. So within like the was it Douglas Murray? Douglas Murray talked about this, that the gays look at the lesbians as very boring because there's a phenomenon called lesbian bed death, which is the lesbians after a couple of years stop having sex and just become good friends that craft together. This is like if there was a lesbian here, they'd be like, yes, that's exactly right. We love crafting.
On here because she actually has some good. She shared her experience with this, and she. I can't remember. Did she go on Paul's channel? She must have. I think she's in the comments, isn't she?
Who is it?
Lynn Lavoie.
Oh yeah, she was here earlier.
Yeah, she's got fantastic experience to share on this.
Okay.
And Lynn, if you're out there, hop on and help us out because we are losers.
The other side, by the way, is that the lesbians think that the gay community is very immature. They call them Peter Pan because the gay guys just want to continue sleeping around and partying and doing drugs, and they're just like, settle down, grow up. That is how the lesbians feel about the gay dudes.
Yeah,
Which is, again,
the intersectionality debates within LGBTQIA plus is fantastic.
Well, you guys like the movie Fight Club? Fight Club is absolutely incredible. Very, very interesting examination of masculinity, written by a gay dude. It's
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is.
And that story is incredibly gay. It's incredibly gay. It's so masculine. And the way he writes the romantic interest in that is how a gay dude who has never dated a woman would write a woman. That's what Marla Singer is like. She's not a woman. She's a man that is in a woman. You know what I mean?
This is fantastic. I feel like I'm learning so much in this conversation from you, David. All the queer coded stuff, and that's very true. I've never thought about that and pieced it together. I mean, I knew what's his name. I mean, I knew he was gay.
Yeah,
I've never,
Chuck Palahniuk.
Yeah. But I never thought about that because there scene like their bed pillow talk after sex. I'm just like, oh, it's like the most horrific stuff.
Yeah. It's two dudes. That's as soon as you understand that that's a gay relationship, then you're like, oh, okay.
Like, I want you to have my abortion. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's
so
bad.
terrible.
It's pretty bad.
Was Barbie written by a lesbian?
No, Barbie wasn't written by a lesbian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's
Not being offensive.
Barbie was written by a genius.
No. Chad, I think you're asking a legitimate question. The problem is, okay, I'll say something. Whatever. Is that lesbians are not our perception of lesbians. Lesbians become sexless. They're the opposite of the gay community, which cannot stop sleeping around. The lesbian community just becomes a lot of good friends who like gardening and crafting.
I feel like you're painting with the super broad gay brush.
Well, that's maybe the generic, but there are exceptions, obviously. I don't know.
I thought that would be a funny sentence to say out loud.
Yes, a gay brush, a very gay brush. I'm combing with a very gay brush. Well, the movie 300 is not gay, okay? It's entirely straight. They tried to make the most masculine movie imaginable. That movie is super gay. It's the same thing as like UFC. It starts off these two really big dudes kicking each other in the face, and it always ends with them spooning.
I might start questioning my sexuality after this stream. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on.
You don't have to, man. If you well, I'll only speak from my
I love how much there's been about 3 or 4 times when people have just been like, There's been a lot of that in this conversation.
There's a little bit of questioning. Yeah.
Here's the problem. I think the narratives of what the ideal life for a man and a woman have gotten so confused, and men don't know what women want and women don't know what men want, because what is the ideal for men in Hollywood, or sort of like the Hollywood movies of the course of the 100 or so years it's been going? Well, James Bond, Mr. Slick, sleeps with the woman and then runs away and goes to the next woman. And so there's this idea that that's what a man wants. And then there's slowly been this change of women in turning sort of women into men. So like for a while, there was this thing of feminism where it's like, we don't like the way that women are being portrayed in movies, where it's like strip clubs and, just like one night stands. And instead of sort of trying to find a way to like be better at portraying men and women without that sexualization, we've just turned the tables, and women have become acting the way that men are. And some of that's reflecting what's happening in society, but it's not leaving anybody really satisfied. Because I think both what both men and women want is long-term stable relationship that ends in kids, as Barbie kind of told us. But, you know, it's like there's that confusion of like women are told men only want sex. And so you think you're just seen as a sexual object. And then, yeah, men are sort of told that women want to, you know, be the sort of alpha in the relationship and control the man and sort of neuter them. But that's not what either of us really want.
But so I think to some extent there is, like, my wife and I, when we talk about the difference between male and female, I like to use the term too much, not enough. So one of us is too much, one of us is not enough, right? Is if you just had female sexuality, you get lesbian bed death, which is a term they created, okay? I did not come up with the straights did not come up with lesbian bed death. That is their term that I am using, versus the gay community where it's too sexual. It's like it's too much of one thing and the other is not enough of the same quality. So trying to extend ourselves through the other person's differences, through the complement of the feminine, through the complement of the masculine, bringing something. One is too anxious, the other is not anxious enough, right? So there's the way that I describe neuroticism to people is that first off, it's one of Spider-Man's superpowers is neuroticism. That's what Spider Sense is. He's just aware of everything that could go wrong. And number two is that an equal number of men and women are born every single year. But by the time you reach 18, there are more women than men because we lost a lot of men jumping off a roof onto a trampoline into a pool. We lost a lot of men that way. We didn't lose a single woman. And so not like instead of seeing it as testosterone makes you brave. Yeah, brave and stupid, right? Like not enough, too much, kind of an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I just think that the not enough, the proper balance is the imbalance. Is it sometimes it leaning on one side of the equation and at sometimes leaning on the other is so. Like I think it's when you try and get the homogeneity, when you have neither hot nor cold, and you get this lukewarmness. That's the bad thing, and it's very funny because in my community, I've tried to, lean into like creating men's spaces because I think, it's funny because I'm not the most like manly man, but I'm like, no, this is actually really important. And I'll be like, oh, we're playing poker or we're doing, cigars have become like a little bit of a thing. And it's just funny the number of men who'll be like, oh, I don't like poker. Oh, I don't like cigars. And I'm just like, it's not about, I don't care about cigar. I don't care about poker. This is there so we can this is the space for us to hang out and say, this is the masculine space. And
Right.
like, people will just be like, no, no, I'm good. And it's just like, it's very frustrating because I'm like, yeah, like I don't care about cigars and I really don't care about poker. Like,
Yeah, I don't like beer. I don't like beer. And I have to pretend I like beer because that's how you hang out with dudes.
And it's like, that's the point. But people will be like, no, I just want this comfy, cozy sort of middle ground, whatever, like I want this lukewarmness, I want this like, oh, the TV's nice and calm and I can flip to whatever I want. And I have my TV and my phone and my iPad all at the same time. It's like, yeah, you're never going to get either the bravery or the like self-sacrificial love. You're not going to get any of the good stuff. You're just going to get that lukewarmness of being satiated. So I think, yeah, not creating spaces to reflect the best of either masculinity or femininity, which the church should be big enough to hold both in tension.
Alan, just tell them it's about the communion, and they'll flock. They'll just flock in.
They love the meta. I mean, that's the annoying thing is like when you realize you have to become like I can just sit down and say, oh, no, like there's this meta thing that we're doing and it's about masculinity, and they'll be like, shut up. But if you actually just be the thing and you be the masculine symbol, people be like, secretly be like, oh, that's cool. Wow, that guy actually, like, actually, yeah, I do actually want to show up. Like, the number of times where I have a event where I'm like, oh, please, anyone show up. I want people to come. And people are like, I don't know. And then you have a private event and you're 4 friends and people are like, so I saw you guys someone posted something on Instagram, picture you. What's up? What are you guys doing? I'm like, so when it's private and it's like secret and elite, then it's desirable. And when it's public and it's anyone can come, then it's like, I just don't know if I can make it. So it's very ironic that,
I had that
things.
experience. I put on a play, like I wrote and directed a play.
Oh
And,
man, guys probably flock to that shit.
again, queer coded. So I wrote a play that ended in poetry. So when we did the show, the theater let us use the space for free, and so they're like, okay, we could make the show free, that people could show up. And my wife was like, no, you charge $10 or no one will come. If you tell them it's worth nothing, they'll believe you.
Yeah.
So we charged 10 people and a lot of people showed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys are hilarious. I mean, it is that, like, yeah, I don't know. It is a little bit of that, because you almost feel like when you guys are talking and explaining this, it feels like you almost have to, it's almost like you have to dumb things down to kind of the sitcom, like the 90s sitcom caricature for guys to like show up. But that's a little bit of the struggle for me, is got like guys that don't want to talk about things and talk about emotions. So I have a really damn hard time connecting to you. Like, it's really tough. Like, if we just want to sit around and talk, and it is kind of that. I have a local buddy who's really good at this, who's really into men's work and actually likes tabletop games a lot, and which I'm not into. Sorry, Nate. I don't even know if I can say that on your channel. I'm just automatically just disappearing. But I've come around a little bit, because I realize that it's people need, a lot of times people need something. It's the thing behind the thing behind the thing. They need something to enter into that is, to me, more, I don't know, superficial, because like the thing that's behind it is always the communion. That's what everybody really wants, regardless if they know it or not. And I just want to get there, like the deepest, most vulnerable, intimate level, like as soon as I can.
Right.
But that's not what most guys are after.
Yeah. Well, you can't forsake the process, and realizing like the process, like the initiation, especially for men, is just as valuable as the actually getting in. The rushing for your fraternity is just as important as being in the fraternity. Like the process of the fact that they make you clean up the party, the fact they make you at 3 a.m. go on buy beer for them, whatever, buy cigarettes for them. That's just as valuable to feeling like the fraternity matters and that they can be intimate and like share themselves with the thing, as the actual, just like, if you just went around and said like free tickets to join my friend, whatever, like they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
this is trash. Like, you need it's so interesting learning this stuff. I mean, I wasn't even in a frat, I was like, whatever,
Yeah,
that sounds lame. But like, then you have the meta understanding of like, oh, now it makes sense why you need to have these processes, and why, especially, I mean, I think for the high end openness people around the corner, we're like, and this happened to me when I was 12 years old, and let us dissect it. And, and most people are like, I would rather die. Please.
They just
talk
scream and run away.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just.
Rillian, totally right. And I mean that figuratively.
How did they
Of
know?
course.
I have a question. Oh, thank you.
What's
And then
this?
is Clevis right here too? I mean, we can go wherever, but this is an interesting question too.
I have a question about, I think this might be related and actually I'm actually trying to get at something. I know it seems like I'm just making jokes and trying to do so, but what I'm actually trying to get at is a show like Queer Eye, which has reemerged. where in order for men to care about things, to integrate the feminine, instead of bringing a woman on for men to listen to, instead they find a flamboyant gay man who has never had sex with a woman before. And they're like, he will teach you how to get women. It's like the integration of the feminine into masculinity is within our culture is not through a woman and a man listening to each other. It's a dude being like, here's a gay man. He'll teach you what that means. Do you get what I mean?
I think that that's just a bunch of hype. They know that that's not going to actually work, but it'll sell. It'll get views.
But
Yeah, what about the ladies?
Yeah, they need a show where 5 lesbians try to teach a straight woman how to attract men. I think that would be. Can you imagine? Yeah. It's just like he really wants you to be better with a screwdriver. Like,
yeah.
No, he really doesn't.
Well, Hezzy, that's why I have my late night women's one-on-one ministry. All right, you know. It's just
is that what stand-up is?
I might turn into a ministry of a sorts. No, come on. Phlebas has that comment. Can you join AA for the brodom alone? Men are desperate out here. I think it's true, but it's just men haven't been like properly socialized. It's like desperation, but a lack of the ability to actually do the thing. Like I've just noticed that, yeah, like men will say like, I have no friend, like, I don't have friends, or I feel like lonely, or I only hang out with my girlfriend, and that's a bad thing. And then at the same time, just have no ability to just hang out in a group of 4 guys, or just be like, this is boring, or like they're talking about a topic I don't know about. They want to play, they want to play basketball. I don't play basketball. It's just like, dude, I haven't played basketball since rec league, but my best friend at church is amazing at basketball. You know what I do? I put on some stupid sneakers and I suck at basketball with him, and he's literally dunking the ball, and I'm like, and then I helped too. It's just this like crazy inability that to actually like integrate yourself with the masculine space, and just to have the humility to be like, okay, I'm desperate enough that I'm actually going to like be like, yeah, I don't belong here, but I'm going to make the attempt. Or I'm not good at basketball, I don't play frisbee, or I don't want to play a board game. But it's like, okay, if you're so desperate for masculinity, submit yourself to the spirit of masculinity. Like, be bad at the board game, be bad at frisbee.
I think some of this stuff has become a problem because of the excess wealth and resources that we have. Because before, when we didn't have the money to pay for someone to clean the church, or you didn't have the kind of technology that allows men and women to do similar jobs and kind of more efficiently divide labor, like you would naturally get those men and women spaces anyways, because the way that women have the ability to reproduce and the lack of strength made it easier for them to stay at home, care for the babies, and do the mending, and have the men go out and work in the fields or be out in the job spaces. And so there's some of this where instead of finding ways to bring in the masculine and feminine that serve the community and that build that, we're kind of having to make stuff up that, people might like for that space instead of it servicing the community. And so it kind of becomes funky where it's like, I don't really want to do this, but I put on the shoes because where else am I going to go?
Well, part too, I think, is I like this idea of creating the fellowship you crave, and then stumbling forward as you do that. And, kind of like when Ann and I want to go hang out with other people, it's like we create the event. So basically we'll call a bunch of people or text them and say, hey, we're going to do comedy sports. It's really stupid. It's only $10 a person. We're going to meet over on Saturday nights, and we're going to have dinner first, and then we're going to go to comedy sports. It's all dumb, but come on out. And we all get together and we hang out and we laugh and we have dinner, and that's where we exchange, things about masculinity and femininity and relationships. And we do that. Obviously, we're not talking about explicitly masculinity and femininity or anything none of that stuff. But the point I'm trying to get at is I think you're right. The idea that the affluence or the overabundance of everything's so available, we become reliant on other people to do things for us instead of actually being proactive and creating the spaces, even if they're poorly formed. I mean, that's what bowling was. I mean, you got to do stupid stuff like bowling or fishing or basketball, and like you can't wait for somebody else to make the space. And like, especially with the kinds of tools that we have today available to be able to create those spaces. Maybe you invite a bunch of people and you never met any of these people. Like that's what meetup.com is, and this is what they're doing with Estuary and all these different kinds of things. And so you can do those kinds of things. You just have to be intentional. It's just like any other family event or anything. If you have a family reunion, some poor bastard in the family has to actually put one foot in front of the other to get the ball rolling. And that's how things actually happen. But yeah.
I kind of going on top of this, I wanted to understand the Amish, and I decided to like show up to Amish country and just like be there for a week. And so there's like a farmer's market not far from me. Showed up in a full 3-piece suit, went up to people in the full gear and said, it was on a Saturday, and I said I needed a place to worship the Lord tomorrow and to work for the week. And the third family I spoke to said yes. And within that, one of the things that I was very, very interested in was the interactions between the men and the women, like in a culture where there was actually much clearer division. But what was interesting was that, like, I was working in the field a couple of days, and the women were working in the fields too. But the natural division of labor, it was like, even when we're physical, like when the women are doing masculine jobs or whatever, they do, like, there's limitations to how far they can go, right? And it was so interesting to watch because, yes, it was St. Jacobs. Someone over here is from Ontario. The divisions between the men and women, I found the women so much more secure in themselves. And there was like an energy to the women where they were like not scared. I had dated someone who was very old school Middle Eastern. And so I was very, very prepared for those kind of gender roles. And that's just not what existed within the old school Mennonites. They, like, the women were open to talk. They were excited. It was like the role that they were fully in made them completely comfortable to say their mind, to do whatever.
What was the liturgy like in that service? That's what I want to know.
So they do 5-part harmony, no musical instruments, because that could lead to pride. So there's a guy at the front. He has a pitch pipe. So they're like, we're going to do song whatever. Everyone flips, and then he goes, boop, and then you can hear everyone warm up to match pitch. And then it's 5-point harmony with the guy doing this, like, to keep rhythm. And that is all for music. And it's just 5-part harmony. The whole thing is just like filled
the whole
up.
liturgy is singing.
Yeah. They do. Wow. It's very Protestant, but yeah, that's kind of
Orthodox to me, actually.
Oh yeah, because no instruments and whatnot. Yeah.
Well, mostly singing.
I mean,
Yeah.
this sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
No, this just reminds me of the like, you got chocolate on my peanut butter. You got peanut butter on my chocolate. It's like, yeah, they're separate and distinct, but when they are come together, they're going to be better for it, you know? And like creating distinct identities actually forms distinct identities that are like knit together in a higher way, like in the church, actually brings out the best in both without having to denigrate either identity. So it just, but of course, it's just very hard to do that because there's not that need that the Mennonites have sort of forced on themselves and the Amish. It's actually funny. I was at this weekend, I was at an Italian Mennonite wedding. My friend is former Mennonite, and my other friend is extremely Italian. So like so the Mennonites are like ultra conservative, as you'd expect, and they prayed. The Mennonite father prayed over the couple. And then the Italian dad was supposed to pray over the couple. And then after the Mennonite dad was like, and we pray for Lord to watch over them and protect them. And we love you, Lord. Amen. Then the Italian dad just looks at the crowd and says, yeah, what he said, like doing bits. And like the Mennonites are like horrified.
Love it.
It was just so funny. But yeah, so that's my little Mennonite fact.
I'm at work, so I just have a second, but I wanted to jump on because I work at a St. Jacob's, David, and
Awesome.
so I interact with them all the time, and I think part of the problem, and this goes to Cassidy's affluence thing, is that we're often trying to falsely create community. So the Mennonites have natural community where, like, if somebody dies, the men get together and dig the grave, or if they get together, the women make the food. Like, it's all naturally done. It's not, you need to step out of your comfort zone and manufacture something, come to a, whatever. I'm not going to pick on the poker game, but church is always now presented as you get out what you put in. And that's not what it is in the Mennonite circles. It's very natural. There's a place for the most awkward people in the world. And if you go to a real Mennonite wedding, some of the men in certain sects greet each other with a holy kiss on the lips. And then the men and the women sit on either side of the church. So, and I think if you go 100 years back, a lot of us and our grandparents see a more natural community, but I don't know, that's all broken down. So
That's awesome, dude. That's great. That's a really awesome contribution to the conversation. But like the question I have is like, we're so far removed from that. Where do you begin? And it has to. I think in some ways you kind of have to jumpstart something, even if you do it poorly, right? So maybe.
Well, one of the ways to make it happen, I think, is to go to a way smaller church, and all these non-denoms are starting to thrive, and they do not need you. They hire 20 staff members. They just don't need you. If you go to Pastor Paul's church right now, they need you to mow the lawn, and that's going to be a more natural thing. A couple of dudes get together. They don't have to entertain each other. There's work to do, and it would build community more naturally. So that's like a practical suggestion.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I really like your point about like forcing community and not integrating it, because that's definitely what I felt when I was an evangelical. You go to these women events and it's like, have a women's dessert, and you listen to some lady sing music or some really terrible improv comedy, and you're just like, this is not fun. This is not, and like you would see the guys, they'd go camping and they shoot guns, and you're just like, well, that's fun. I want to do that. Like, can we at least get like, go to a cabin and like go on a walk or something? It was like, it's just this feeling of like you're forcing it. But now that I'm in the Orthodox Church, they do kind of make things where your participation has to be integrated into the thing. Like as a group, once a year we come in and we do a deep clean of the church, and we all come together, and you have the women who make the pierogies and the different things for the fast schedules, and you have the choirs, and then you have the men who help with the liturgy. Like there are these different places where you can find those spaces, and there's still a lot that I'm having to work with on like what it means to be a man and a woman and how to integrate that in my life and my culture and all those things. But it feels more meaningful and far less forced in that sense.
Well, and
When
it's
To help
aimed at
people.
something to help the community.
yeah, to be part of a community where also everyone isn't the exact same age. That's a big problem I see in evangelical churches too, is it'll be like you're going to a cool church, so it's all young people. And one of my experiences of like experiencing this kind of community in my own life recently is like I'm friends with people who are older and someone's going through serious health stuff. And so a whole group of us went over and like did his yard work, right? And then we, had a couple of drinks, we had food, we hung out, we like it was the closest thing to a barn raising, right? That I go through in my regular life, where that's needed because one person isn't able to do those things that I have an overabundance of ability to do, right? So we're just doing yard work and then having a couple of drinks, and it was so meaningful, so much more than the once a year church thing.
Yeah, but old people are weird and smell funny. You never thought about that, David.
That's the
No, but I would just say to Phlebas's point. I mean, I understand the point he's making, and agree with it in some ways. But I think we're sort of missing the like evolution of like, you can't get someone to go to a church where they want you to make coffee. You're not going to go to a Mennonite church where you're suddenly a farmer. Like guys, like if we can't even. Like, it's like there are steps to this, and some people need the extreme path to go from mega church to like, I'm now alone in the woods and I'm Castaway. I'm Tom Hanks in Castaway. But like, the trends are against us, not for us. So like, I don't know if we can just immediately be like, we're all going to become Amish now, guys. We figured it out. Like, maybe that's the answer, but I don't think a lot of people who barely are willing to volunteer for 2 hours on a Sunday are then going to become Amish.
The Mennonites that I hung out with were like, the world is just going to be Mennonites and Muslims. We're the only ones having enough kids. So they're like, yeah, we're going to take over. Like, we're not going to become Mennonites. The Mennonites are going to take over.
Everybody should just become fall down drunks and burn you to the ground. And I got a place for you. I'll help you out. You can get totally plugged in. You can find somebody to help move every weekend. You can pick up chairs, make coffee, all that happy horse shit. And it's very fun.
Well, I think the point is people don't do that, like maybe, like the problem is that it's not that it wouldn't work. It's that it's not happening.
It is happening, but on smaller scales. And I agree with you. There is going to be a difference. Like, you're right. Our world is different than an Amish world now, like in general, right? Obviously, there are pockets where you have these Mennonite Amish communities that are digging graves, working the fields. But that the spirit of that doesn't change, in the sense of we shouldn't just try to make men and women spaces to make men and women spaces. What can we do to make men and women spaces that are pointed to helping the community and filling a spot where it's missing? I think that focus would make this sort of question of how do we develop men and women spaces, how do we get men and women to go to those spaces, healthier. I don't have the answer, but I think starting with that question could help us in the space when we have to deal with technology and the way that it's changed how we interact with each other. I mean, I think that's why it's really work, because it's meeting a space where people are finding something that's lacking. So it's not hard to get a bunch of men to come out on a weekend to spend time and hang out with each other in a forest, because there's that place where they're missing something, and it's helping into the integration of the greater community.
Is the topic here something like community? How do people trying to find community through church and the struggles of that? Am I on point about that? I kind of joined not too long ago.
It's sort of around that, but it started with the idea of men and women and men and women's spaces and how do you be a man and a woman and queer coding and all of these things. And then it's slowly come to this place, kind of talking about community, especially men and women's spaces within church communities and how to develop that and get people interested in those things.
I think,
Yeah, I think one of the things that you can see, like if you would look at a farm family, like back in the day, I grew up in a rural area, and the beautiful thing is there were separation of duties, right? But it didn't mean that the women and the girls didn't jump in and, you know, milk cows and do physical sort of stuff, but there were duties, and everyone kind of knew what their roles were and filled those roles, because you need all the roles filled, right? And not only this, but you know, the moms would take primary, particularly for younger children, they took primary responsibility over the children, right? And they would kind of do some of that, but they were also integrated, you know, into the daily work life of the farm too. Everyone had their chores, right? And then if you think about those communities, like those communities just so naturally would have things that would integrate together. And then, you know, so when a family would die, right? So here's what's what happened in the community I come with. Men would get all the combines and everything else. Let's say it's around harvest season, and they would go work the fields and make sure that they would stop what they were doing at their farms. They would go harvest the field. So the men would get to work there. The women would come around and start doing, you know, all the cooking and preparing all the other stuff that needed to happen around, you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden everyone knew their roles and everything was just so integrated. The challenge I have, and Jacob, I'd be curious about this, and with you, Alan, like I've been thinking about this, and that sort of stuff's still happening in this world, okay? And I think you find that over in Europe, Cassidy, if you to get out in rural areas, there's still that real deep community going on. How do we do this in cities? Like Alan, New York City, like that, it's so much easier in certain contexts, right? But the challenge is we have a bunch of people living in these big cities. I mean, you can do it. And so how do we bring those communities together? And there needs to be the spaces where, let's face it, like there are certain things that men are more naturally drawn to, for the most part. There are spaces that women are more naturally drawn to, for the most part. But then how do we then come together? So the spouses, like then there's this joining point where the spouses can hang at certain times too. You know what I mean? Like it's that natural thing that happens. But I think that's it. Like I think we're dealing with a community crisis and an individualistic crisis, and all those things. And so, and then I'll just tie this in and I'll shut up. And Hezi wanted to know, how could we integrate our spouses more into this space? I think this is a high niche space, right? Like this is a very particular sort of conversation that people are interested in. And you know, I'd be curious, there probably could be some things, but my wife has enjoyed some of those things, but she wants nothing. Like she did this sort of like having the conversations we're having or jumping on YouTube and talking with people or something like that. Like she's like, no way. And then even going to a conference, it'd be like, she's like, yeah, no, you're going to nerve me there. I'm not going to nerve, buddy.
Well, so I would say to Hezi, like a reminder of some of his own traditions is like in Judaism, there's a belief, there's certain prayers that men are supposed to do in the morning, and the women aren't bound to do those same prayers. And the question is, well, why, right? And some of the sages or in Kabbalah, they'll write that women are already naturally in that spiritual space, and men have to do these prayers in order to get there, to get where the women are naturally. And when you think of something like that, then you go to church and you're like, it is all women, isn't it? Like if you go into these spaces that are entirely based on how people are feeling, you get like a non-liturgical space of churches. They're just filled with women, just absolute dearth of them and no men, which is so strange that we're a space that's mostly men sitting around kind of talking, which is very similar to things like Torah study. And you can say, oh, there's a lot of communities have divisions between men and women where there would naturally be spaces that at some point they say, okay, no girls are allowed, but you kind of wonder, maybe no girls showed up, and so you made it a rule later.
Yeah.
I think
it's that whole unity and the multiplicity. It all has to exist at once, right? Like there needs to be that unity, but then there has to be the multiplicity too, right? And the natural flows of who we are in the days and responsibilities and roles. And we kick back a lot about responsibilities and roles right now. We don't want to have any of those, right? But there are natural. But if you work in an organization or have a team, people have to. There are like the championship teams are where people find their roles and accept their roles and excel in their roles, right? It's we all can't do everything, right? And so it's like, hey, where are my talents, my strengths, my this, that, and the other thing, you know? And it has been, you know, one of the things that I think, and I would just say this, which is I work with a lot of highly talented women and always have. Early 90s, I was working at Arthur Anderson, and we had some rock star gals who were, you know, coming in with me in that group or whatever. And I think one of the things we're trying to tell women is like, if you would look at it, it's kind of like act like a man. Like, okay, go out in the workplace and act like a man and do this sort of stuff or whatever. And it's just kind of like, no, be a woman. You can still be excel, but we've got this weird thing we're telling our young girls, and you know, and then people are getting into their mid 30s and 40s and they don't have a family or anything else, and they're devastated.
I think that kind of speaking to this topic of the Amish and the farm communities, that like different modes of being create different kinds of people. So there's like limits to how much. I think a lot of times us in the cities or in a more like I'm an information worker. I guess some of you guys probably are too. Like we maybe idolize or look at the past or past modes of production, like farm work, or the Amish communities, things like that, for inspiration. But those are different people than we are. Like I'm 40 years old, and you know, I've been living in a very different way. If I tried to live on a farm, it would be a very uncomfortable experience for me. Physically, I like the challenge, but there's something in the mentality where it's like very physical and inescapable, right? So
but you became Orthodox.
I did, and it was very hard.
You became Orthodox. Like, for the people within this space, like to me, that's kind of what this is. It's just like, okay, we tried this modern thing. What can we try that's the most archaic imaginable? Could we, like, if the spiritual leader looks like a regular dude, I'm going to be very disappointed. I want a big beard. I want some fancy dress. I want something where I'm immediately going to know. You know what I mean? Like,
that's a very conceptual breakdown of maybe that's like such a 30,000 foot view that I'm not capable of it. You know, being the landscape that's being surveyed there. You know, for me, I was just very weird hippie spiritual quester, so it felt natural to go from like where I found the nectar to where I found the nectar, where I found the sweetness. I'm just a bee chasing honey, and I found honey here. And yeah, I guess a lot of the spaces. But if you start off as a Californian going to like Buddhist monasteries and like fancy yoga classes and stuff, and I guess I'm already like broke from the mainstream in some way. So it's easy to break from the mainstream in other ways. Maybe I need to break from the mainstream. Maybe I'm afraid of being caged by culture and civilization. I don't know, but
that wasn't a criticism, by the way. Like, I think we're legitimately searching for things, and this is an example of it. That is part of why I wanted to hang out with these Amish folk. I was just like, what is an older way that is actually consistently working? Is that because they're continuing on whether or not we want to be involved in them. So like,
there's a dryness to like modern life, like to the default society, right? That's like it's like overcooked chicken with no seasoning, I think. And like if I was going to describe how it tastes to be a typical modern person, like as a culinary metaphor. And so I think that's what gets people uncomfortable when we start searching. Like, we're just tired of this like dry, unseasoned chicken. And whether it's like, oh, those Amish people, they're eating something that looks a little tastier, or those Orthodox, or those, you know, we got to find something. Or maybe I'll put together something new. You know, where I come from in Silicon Valley, everyone wants to start their own religion because they're too good and too smart for anything traditional. But everyone wants something a little tastier than what we got.
2 desserts at every meal. The Amish do 2 desserts at every meal. They're famous for it. It was incredible.
You got to burn a lot of calories for that lifestyle.
I gained 10 pounds
Exactly,
of muscle in a week. 10 pounds of muscle in a week. I was very sore.
So I want to. Sorry, I just real quick. Who was saying I was driving? Who said the wise thing about I couldn't make? I'm 40 and I live in a city and I couldn't make the transition to farm life. That's what's your name? I'm sorry,
I'm
I can't
Jacob.
see. I'm a little.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jacob.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's. I think that strikes me as why. I mean, at the very least, consult someone like Sherry of what real farm life is like before you make the dive. I mean, she had to travel to see her kids, hadn't seen them since before COVID, and in Europe, and she had to travel alone because the husband had to stay back and take care of the livestock and whatnot. I mean, farm life is when you're bound. When they say bound to the land, I think that's quite literal. You're really bound, and I don't think we suburbanites or urbanites comprehend what that means. Just a thought, and I just wanted to give a thumbs up, pull over and give a thumbs up to that statement. It's a hard transition.
Yeah, no doubt, Mark. Like a lot of friends of mine, like their dads never went on the vacations with them, like just because someone couldn't leave the farm, and so that was just kind of the life, and that was just a sacrifice to live that life, right? So yeah, and I just threw the farm thing out there. I know not everyone's going to become a farmer, so I'm not saying that has to be the answer, but it can tell us some stories about roles, and then separation roles, but integration of roles. And I do think it plays out for us. Like I think the best ways that can play out in church. And I do think it's a particular challenge for cities, or like you would say, Mark, folks in urban areas, right? Because that's where the majority of people are living now. So how do we build these integrated communities?
And I don't want to be interpreted as being negative on your question, Lance. I think it was it's a brilliant. No. I think it's a subject that needs to be addressed. How do we replicate community in suburbia? And I think it's almost easier in urban and highly populated, concentrated populations in urban centers than it is in suburbia. Suburbia, where I operate in, we need a car basically to do everything. And we get in the car, we never talk to anybody between, I mean, you might pass 100 destitute people on the street on the way to the grocery store. And if you pulled over for everyone, you would be out of money before you got to the grocery store, right? I mean, that's life in suburbia. Whereas if you live in a tight community in a rural section of the country, or in a highly populated neighborhood, you're not going to have that same experience. You're going to have experiences like it, no question. But it's almost impossible not to be wicked in suburbia. I mean, if you think about James, read the epistle by James and his standard for how we are to conduct ourselves towards the poor. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so out of conformity with the Apostle James living in Redlands, California. It's shameful. And it's, go sell all you have and give to the poor and go follow me. But it's like, how, but I think it begins with what you're saying, trying to find a way to build community in our modern culture. But it's a big question. I mean, it's a really, really big question.
Does community mean something other than like having friends and like people you see a lot? Like, is there something bigger that you're talking about?
Yes.
You're talking about
in the sense of care. It's just in the sense of how we care for each other and care for others. It's very individualistic. You need to, it's all about, you have a job, you care for your family, you care for your household here where I'm at. But and I'm, in my little church community, we're not very integrated nobody's in my business and I'm not in theirs. In fact, it's considered faux pas to get in each other's business, right? Whereas your Amish people are in each other's business. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I apologize.
I think one of the deepest levels of community you can have is with people you don't like, which is one of the distinctions between community and between friendship. Right now, you congregate around people same age, same interests, same everything, and that becomes your friends, right? Versus in very legitimate communities, you have groups of people who have nothing in common except for the thing that brings them together.
So I think that's like the definition of a church in my experience. It's like the easy part was all the people that were like me, of similar age or mindset or industry. And then the hard part is, I've been there a year and now I have to interact with the old Greek ladies that, come from a different place. And, there's a certain amount of suffering involved to be part of this organization that's not all like me. I guess you got to suffer a bit if you're going to stick around.
So I'm curious so I think that this is probably changing. Anyways, in my life, there was a lot of distraction. Like a high value thing would be something like hookup. To hook up was a high value mode of action. So like dating apps, things like this were kind of like taking the place at the top of the hierarchy as far as somebody who is secular, and I'm wondering how much hookup culture distorted community altogether, or maybe a chicken and an egg situation there. But I do think like that sort of the hookup culture thing, I believe it's changing, because I think people are having less, they're engaging in that sort of thing. At least what I hear younger people talking about, it's kind of repulsive. That whole thing is repulsive. So I don't know, but it is something I often would think about, is how much that particular culture distorted our connection to a lot of things, and like trust and all these different things. And
I think that's a smart comment.
Yeah, so I don't know what you guys think. I don't know if that derailed your guys'.
No. Chad, I think you're bang on. Because I think a lot of, like, even the language that people use, that they used to talk about settling or settling down or whatever, right? And the idea is, if I just pick the thing I like and enjoy the most, it's actually deeply immature, right? So the food that when you're, when you like 24, like when you first get a real job or something, and you realize you can buy as much junk food as you want, and then you're like, oh, if I actually eat all of the junk food I want, I'm miserable. So I have to eat these things that other people used to eat because they were cheaper, right? Cabbage or whatever, right? Like I actually become healthier. And if I do the dating that I naturally want to do, it is deeply immature, because I'm immature. Mm-hmm. And if I do the friendships that I naturally want to have, they're going to be immature friendships where it's just a bunch of guys, all like a bunch of people who are exactly like me, talking about exactly my thing, as opposed to stretching myself through relationships with people who are not like me, where it's awkward and difficult and all these other things. And so like and when you're in a city, you can naturally pack all the people who are exactly the same all in one group. We all like exactly this kind of music. We all like exactly this kind of stuff, and we'll be all there. But then we don't get any of the benefits of the wider community.
Hey,
does that sound, Chad, like it's connecting?
Josh, Reformed hippie, I would say. I want to ask you a question. So, in the way that you were living before, the values that you might try to articulate or say out loud, were did you actually examine those, or did they allow you to do kind of free form whatever you like without consequence, or how was that? Because I think it'd be good to explore that, ask somebody their own experience around. So you're a self-proclaimed hippie, or once was at least.
We talking about me or something?
Yeah.
Is there any other hippie on this? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Because I've heard your some of your story, and Burning. I think you went to Burning Man and stuff like this, correct?
Yeah, only 6 times, but
Right. Exactly.
Cassidy, you have something.
Only
to say.
6.
Before we get into that, I have to go, but I did want to answer Chizi's question about how we can get more women on this space, which is not necessarily a thing that I think should be a goal. But if you want more women on the space, you have to talk about beauty, relationships, or child rearing.
Oh, there you go.
That's how you're going to get more women. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. We don't care much about ideas unless.
What about autistic women? Could we get more autistic women if we stay exactly the same?
I don't know. We'll have to do a survey. All right. But anyways, sorry. Don't mean to derail, but I just wanted to answer
I'm
that.
actually curious, Cassie, if stepping over that at all with these questions, are these unattractive questions for a female audience? Because I'm asking because I think that they're actually there's important stuff underneath there that has to do with relationships and our inability to form relationships where children are made. So is it a weird question? I'm just wondering.
Can you repeat the question? I missed it a little bit.
Well, some of the stuff that I'm asking, there's overt questions about sexual stuff, and I'm wondering if it's too crass of a line of questions in general, just from a woman's point of view. I'm wondering if this conversation as a whole has been kind of meh or no.
Probably to some women.
Okay.
Although there's a wide range of femininity now, and what is sort of what hits the bar of acceptable conversation with those things. But I don't know. I mean, I think all the questions that we ask here are questions that women also have interest in, but we do frame it differently. We embody it much more in human relations and practicality, and weaving it through everything instead of getting very insular on the idea itself and sort of the modal logic of how to get from one space to the other. Now, there are obviously outliers in that, but I think if you really want to attract more women, it's those things that you're kind of going to have to talk, especially women in their 30s or late 20s. Those are all the things they're trying to figure out.
Can I throw out my opinion on it and get your reaction to it? It's very brief, which is just that this is inherently dangerous. This can upset your place in your social relationship. You're talking in public about private things. This is like walking on the edge of a cliff or tightrope walking or something.
I agree. It is much more dangerous to talk about those things than merely ideas, which is why I say I don't necessarily think that's what we should be talking about. But again, just because something might be dangerous doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile and worth doing.
I kind of mean the whole process of streaming on YouTube together. This has potentially consequences for us outside of this space. For me, I feel that danger, and I don't know, I'm wanting to connect with people, so I'm willing to do it because these seem like a good group of people. But I wonder if that feeling of danger of saying something that you shouldn't and you can't take back might be, since women are more sensible creatures, they might.
No, I think women take those risks in different ways. I'm sorry, you don't see men crying on TikTok about how their husband left and now they have to figure out how to be a single mom on birthdays. Women do this in a different way than men do. So I don't think it's the risk factor of putting your life out. It's just the perceived risk in the way that they do it that is different. But I do think all of it is very risky, and we should probably think more about how we do that.
What if we all were doing a full face of makeup while we had these conversations?
You know what? You know what I've noticed? Brett Cooper has started to do this. she's starting to do these like TikToks where she's talking about like marriage and stuff in this conservative way. And she's putting makeup on and doing this stuff. I'm like, this is so weird. What's going on? But anyways, that's a whole nother subject. It might work. Who knows? I gotta go. I have a baby to care for, so gotta go be a woman.
Hi, Cassidy.
There was something.
For long things. One of the things I wanted to throw out there for women, like my wife, I had a conversation. It was Which Way Western Church, and I intentionally invited Nick and John on to have this conversation. I was kind of talking about the move to liturgical or whatever. I intentionally invited them onto that to join the conversation because I knew they'd disagree with me, right? And my wife was kind of watching it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like you know, the dialogos, like she hates confrontation, and she hates watching people in confrontation, right?" And so, even though we're doing that in good faith, like anytime she sees that, and then she saw the chat, it's like people are so mean in the chat. I'm like, nah, that's just kind of how it goes. It's okay, you know, whatever. But she's like, that would crush me if people said stuff like that about me in chat. I'm like, just don't worry about it. So I think that's an interesting thing because I've actually seen that when I've done leadership consulting. By the way, it's not. It's there are plenty of men. It's a small subset that also don't like confrontation, right? So I mean that's it. But if you look at the Myers-Briggs thinking versus feeling processing, which 70% of all men process mainly through an analytical space. That leaves 30 like Luke Thompson, who's a feeler who don't, and then 70% of all women primarily process through feeling, and that's about relationship and community and not doing that. I wonder if that's also a part of this too.
So I've been with my wife for some time. We've been a couple for 23 years, and I'm still trying to figure out how to have a conversation with her. I'm still trying to figure out because we both see the world in different ways. We both our opinions on the same matter that we see, it's different. And whenever we're traveling, whenever we're together for hours and hours and hours and hours on end, it's I get to see that differences in a profound way. And what I found out is the things that I'm interested in, ideas and history, she is like, please, no. If you're going to talk about it, I have to find, so again, I haven't figured it out, but I have to find a way that she would be interested in. So I have to frame it in a way of how did this event affect normal everyday people in a relationship and all that stuff, and that she can tolerate somewhat, right? When it bring in the human factor, the emotions that this event happened. So I kind of have to, I'm bilingual, so sometimes when I run into somebody and there's a metaphor and they don't get me, then I have to sit in our native language and then they'll, oh, I know what you're talking about now. So, but like I said, I'm still trying to figure out how to be able to have long conversations with my wife where she's like, can we change the subject? And then when she's talking about the stuff that she enjoys, she also has to try to do the same thing to try to get me engaged. So she has to try to tell her story, tell her ideas about what she likes and all that stuff, and about the shows she likes and the movies she likes. But she has to frame it in a way to get my attention as well. So she has to find a way to intrigue me. And it's a dance that it sounds like it would be easy, but I've been at this for over 20 years and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, I think going back to David's point, I think relating to people that, you have relating across differences is like this great ascetic practice that I think shapes us, it sanctifies us and shapes us in the shape of God. And like marriage is one of the greatest examples of that in my limited experience. I'm going up on my 15-day anniversary today. And, I was joking with my wife at our wedding a little bit that, I have more in common with my groomsmen than with her, but it's true. Like I do have a lot more in common with my best guy friends.
You have too much in common with them. That wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But your differences is the beauty. Your difference is the beauty because you're going to become more because of her differences. If you guys were the same, you would never grow. You would never learn something new. So that's the beauty behind that. I've been learning that her differences will make me stronger, a better person, because I only know what I know, and so I'm so limited because I'm not the brightest man. I'm very limited. I need someone that's better than me, knows more than me,
is different than me, has different ways of seeing the world, even when we're seeing the same thing. So that, I don't think that's a weakness. I think that's a strength.
Yeah, I
That
think
the other person that you're going to be having this life journey with is different than you. I found out that is a blessing, not a curse.
yeah, I
That's
think
like
the
father-in-law.
struggle to relate is a beautiful thing. Makes us grow.
Yeah, you have to find how to have how to be interested in the same things that you guys are both interested in, or the same event, but you just have to say it in a different way. Like, for instance, if you didn't know English and you use Spanish, I would be able to have a conversation with you. But I would not be able to have a conversation with someone that speaks that speaks German, but not English or Spanish. So we have to find a way to relate. So we have to understand that other people do not see the same thing in the same way because they're just different people. And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay that we're different. It's okay, but we can grow. It's not a weakness, it's a strength. As long as we do it in the spirit of Christ, right? Because not everything's healthy. I do understand that too.
Make friends with her father.
Mandy, you jumped on. We've been circling around some topics around women and community and all sorts of anything. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it was more of we need more women. I don't know. I think I agree that it shouldn't be a goal. And I keep saying this and I don't know if I'm right. I just really don't think when you do the whole Peterson averages, if you look at like women's interest, I think it's just an interest thing. Like most women I know just would not ever be interested in this. And I don't know if it's the confrontation aspect, because I'm so agreeable and super neurotic and I cry at the drop of a hat, and I hate confrontation. So like I'm feminine in that way, but I've been terminally like online since high school. So maybe that's why I like it. But most women I know just wouldn't. I don't think there's something you could change that suddenly they'd be like, oh, I want to come sit on a YouTube stream and talk about ideas. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm not like a lot of the women, so maybe it's just hard to.
Yeah, I go and look at these other YouTube live streams, and there are lots of women in there, and women and men on the same stream. They're just topics that are dumb.
Yeah, that sounds mean, but some of them are just shallower, topic, dumber. I don't know. Not that they are, but it's just, I don't know.
The women who seem to be in this group, like my wife, when I go to a party with my wife, the girls will all be one place, and my wife has no interest in what the women are talking about. She wants to come over and just hang out with the guys as they're talking about whatever very specific movement in art or whatever.
Yeah,
that's what her interest is.
That's what happens. Like at our church, when people get together, like I'll hang out with the women. I love them, but I don't find their conversation interesting. And then I can hear like what my husband's talking about. I just would rather go over there, but it just is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're in a world that's so obsessed with diversity and everything right now. It's just like, I'm not bothered by the fact that the corner doesn't have enough polyamorous Filipinos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but let me
the interest is there's a bunch of single guys who just wish there was more women.
But let me bring something that's kind of corny, but it's to make a point. So if you were by yourself and you had some time off, and then somebody gave you a movie ticket, right? You're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go watch a movie for free. And the only movie that was playing, let's say it was a premiere, right? And we're gonna have two scenarios, same circumstance, two scenarios, right? You get a free ticket, you have the time off, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go to the movies. And then the only movie that's playing is The Notebook, right? Now, same circumstance, you go to the theater, the only movie that's playing is Inception. Two different movies, same scenario, free movie ticket, free, all that. And some people are gonna say, yes, I'm the luckiest person, right? I got this free ticket and Inception is playing for the first time, it's a premiere. Or The Notebook is playing, yes, for the first time, But
no contest.
Why do people join this forum versus another forum? It's one of those things that, I mean, it's some people just gravitate to certain things and others don't. And it's kind of, now I have seen The Notebook and my wife has seen Inception, but we kind of had to be like, well, if you watch my movie, I'll watch your movie, and then we'll kind of like talk about it.
Yeah,
And,
that's
you know, because of that, we were able to do that. But ourselves willingly, like,
these
No,
kind of
Well, and
conversations.
I think I got to jump out. I got to jump out, and Tyra's going to take over. But I think one of the things that you said there, Mandy, and I just start out stuff for conversation. This thing has been very organic. We are the people who show up here. We have the conversations we have. We don't force it. And so if we stay in an organic mode, the people who are going to show up are the people that are going to show up, right? And I do think that what we are is not as the term is defined, inclusive in society or whatever right now. But I think we are welcoming, and people who like what we're doing here, we do welcome people in here. And it's not, you're not always gonna, people might push back at you, but by and large, there's not that nastiness that we see in a lot of other places. So I think, I think we just keep doing what we're doing in a lot of ways. But I think it could be interesting. Like, I like the A/B test stuff. Like, Cassidy threw out an idea. Like, what if there was beauty relationships and babies? Like, what if there was some folks kind of started talking about that? We could try it. If no one watched it and it didn't do anything, okay, tried that. That didn't work. But maybe it would work, and that'd be like, wow, maybe there's a bunch of mom lurkers out there who have been watching. Because listen, look at what happened this weekend on live stream. We had these 10 people who were lurkers for years that showed up, right? And kind of became a contestant, Chad, right?
Well,
and kind of came in the game.
The recording is gone.
It's on X.com for one. Two, I downloaded what StreamYard saved, and I need to figure out with Nate. We can download on the X.com, so we can have that. But the other thing is, like, live events or live chats. Like, I don't get worried if it's not saved, because the participation in that moment was the participation in that moment. You know what I mean?
So Lance, I think though the way we will break things down will be based on the community that we already have. Okay. So people, if it's about relationships, math is about relationships. Our community was very interested in math, but that's a very particular way of analyzing relationships, right?
That's what I was going to say too. Cassidy's idea of those topics, I would still talk about them in terms of all the other ideas of this kind of space. So I still think other women would be like, what are you talking about? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Because women are deeply offended by pickup culture, but pickup culture is all about relationships. That's what it's about, and communication and all those things that are hypothetically like more female topics. That's what they do. It's just in a very autistic male way of breaking them down.
Yeah. I mean, I jumped on to just take a swing at this, and maybe it's aggressive, but I would go a little further and say, I mean, I agreed with a lot of what Lance said. I think it's a little almost disrespectful when we keep sort of looking over the shoulder of the people who show up and the people who want to participate, and we make space. But those aren't the people we want. We want the other people. It's just like, guys, like, these are the people we have. I remember listening to PVK. I remember having a moment where I threw down $1,000 to fly to Chino to put myself up in a hotel. Like, I had to throw down money, and a lot of other people threw down money. And then to say, like, yeah, but if we could subsidize the cool kids, like the people we want, and we'll make it cheap so they can show up, and we'll change the topics. It's like, well, some people like throw down, some people show up, some people put up or shut up. And then to like reverse it and be like, oh yeah, but like, that's not what we want. It's just like the spirit is coming down on certain people in certain ways. And I think it's backwards to say like, oh, but we have to manipulate the spirit so that it falls on the people we want it to fall on.
Well, and like I'm leading kind of a house church thing right now. And one of our friends, we were inviting them, and their life was very clearly falling apart. And the more things were falling apart, the less interested they were in being at the group. And one of my friends who had some experience with the family of people in AA, he was saying, I think this is a comment which was used within those communities, is the program is for those who want it, not those who need it. And like, so you set up systems for those who actually show up and are willing to use them, not the ones that you say, you know who would be great? You know who really needs this? It doesn't matter who really needs this. It's only for those who actually show up.
Right. The saying is, it's not for those who need it or those who want it. It's for those who do it. That's how I would frame that.
That's good. That's very good.
I put a weird comment in. Sorry. It's not that weird, actually. But I don't want to derail what you guys have going. But
no, this is good.
Okay. I'm going to just talk about this real quick because I think it is important. The YouTube, this little corner of the internet is YouTube centric. It has been. It basically, the genesis of it comes out of there. And for future reference, if we do more of these 24-hour streams, there's a way to set it up where you can do pre-timed recording, like it'll kick in. You might have to, switch to the next stream to keep it going, but it is a historic event, supposedly. We wouldn't want to lose the things that were there on YouTube. And many of us won't use Twitter. I won't. Never been on there.
Yeah. So Chad, YouTube is what YouTube. So what I'm working on, I don't know if I was trying to do it from mine. I might have Nate to do it. So you can download videos off of YouTube, right? And so, or off of x.com. So we just need to get that downloaded, and then I'm going to parse it into the number of parts that YouTube will select, and then we'll upload it into Grail Country. So I totally know that's a thing. And we are YouTube. We're YouTube because of Paul's YouTube channel. Like, we're a YouTube-centric community, make no mistake about it, right? More than Discords and everything else. So I totally agree with you, Chad. But YouTube's limits and how we broke it, I don't care. It was fun to have that 29-hour live stream. And a lot of people jumped in and participated in the conversation. And it was in that, I actually think that the participation aspect of it is awesome while it's going on. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And people had a lot of fun. And so, yes, and I totally agree. There are people that, I won't create a TikTok account, Chad. I won't create an Instagram account. I'm not on Facebook. So I totally agree with you. Like, there are places I would not go. So I totally get that from x.com. So we need to just get that downloaded and then upload what we can to Grail Country. I think I'll probably have to do it in 4 parts in order to get it all up there.
Is that Twitter?
Twitter, yes. X.com now. Twitter.
So weird. It creeps me out. Anyways, no, it's cool.
When you had mentioned that during something else, Chad, and I was what you said dismissive about or disregard of the loss of it. I said I kind of was, but it was kind of more of my own issue because I just overshared. So I was kind of secretly glad that if it was gone, but it wasn't. I mean, I agree. I know what you're saying, and I agree. It should be saved.
Yeah, it's okay. It was cool. This is just my personal thing. It's not prescriptive or anything like that. Excuse me. I would hope that we don't make a regular thing out of it. Maybe a quarterly thing or something. That would be cool. My whole issue about it is if something is at volume 11 100% of the time, then there is no dynamics. There's nothing special about it. And so that's my only concern about having a 24-hour stream 7 days a week, or 24-hour stream maybe once a week would be fine. But
I totally agree, Chad. It was a rare thing. We did it once. I don't have and just whatever. If you do it all the time, then it loses its uniqueness, right? And one of the unique aspects was it was the first time it ever happened. So I totally agree with you that those are rare events. Now, Jacob wants that happening all the time on 3 channels.
Right.
So, but that's a different thing. That's creating a network or whatever. But anyway, totally agree with you, Chad. And then also the thing that happens is doing that is other people are doing videos during those times. And then, some people get their feelings hurt if something's going on while someone else is going on. And I totally get that.
No, I don't.
So, I'm not talking about you. Well, I guess that maybe I am. So anyway, no, totally agree, Chad. I think it was just, you know why we did it, Chad? It was fun.
Of course.
It was fun. Why did I
Well-
want to do that primarily? It was fun. I thought, what the heck? So, anyway,
It was fun. No, it was fun. Those are just some things I wanted to kind of vocalize because I think again it's good. It's all good. I just would hope that we pay attention to like so for nostalgic purposes. I do kind of I would like to see there be more tightly aimed conversations pre-recorded on topics, kind of like what we used to have. I think we've lost somewhat of a degree of that to a certain extent, but there is so much rich conversation when having constraints on it, and it would be good to practice constraints now and again. I think, at least for me. Maybe I'm being a little prescriptive. It's just an opinion that I have. It's probably
No, and I think it would be good if we have like a funneling process. Chad, that's actually what you and I are going to have a conversation soon. It's already on the calendar. But that is part of what I actually want to talk to you about is things I've already heard you say. Mm-hmm. I want to have a conversation where it's all distilled into one place and these random threads are all kind of brought back together, kind of a thing. Where it's like, what if we just do this one topic or this one idea that we've already talked about a whole bunch, right? Yeah. Whereas like, after you tell a story a certain number of times, you know how to tell it right. So it'd be really good if there was not the first time you spoke that story, but like after a year, here it is. Here is the story.
I hear you. Well, did you ever I really love the old Randos United conversations. Like there was some of those with Jess and Luke and Julian and Tyler and Joey and Sam and Nate. I mean, there were conversations. Sherry was on there. Like, there's conversations around, I think, like, one of them was called "It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want to" or something like that. It's about male tears, men crying, and then like there's another one talked about they would when Peterson and Peugeot had to drop that conversation when Peterson first came back. That was a great commentary. It's just a great discussion around that. So just different things like that where they would spend like an hour and a half talking about this stuff from different perspectives. Right. I just think they're really valuable. And they were based on constraints. And so, yeah. And I am hoping to have a really good, fruitful conversation with you in our conversation. This is also kind of what I wanted to try to do with the Friday Morning Nameless stuff is, have a lot of the pre-recorded stuff because you can keep it to constraints, whether it's story or whatever. Now I don't have anything to say.
That's all right.
I actually have to run, so see you guys later.
Bye, man.
Who is this up there? Is that Alan?
Alex.
Oh.
Yes.
Well,
I think I'm good to go. That seems like a good place to end. Actually, Chad, I don't know what your experience was like. The second day that we did the 12-hour stream, 3 hours into that stream, I became like angry that it was still going on. I was like, what is this? What is happening? Who is doing this?
I've always been leery of the 24-hour thing. So I immediately was kind of resistant to it. But what the part about, most of it has to do with my own character defects. Even when the 24-hour stream is going, I noticed that in the back of my mind, I had this, what's happening on there? What's happening? I'd be out, doing whatever, shopping with the wife or something, or maybe we were watching this really cool show called The Tourist on Netflix. It was a really good show. And the whole time though, I'm thinking, I wonder what they're talking about. So I have like this lingering obsession going that's, powers and principalities, man. These are real. And so that's just basically where my mind goes. around this stuff, and the conversation, and maybe I'm the only one who deals with this. Maybe I'm the only one who deals with the obsessive quality of engaging with the online, this little corner of the internet. I find that hard to believe, but
that was my experience, Chad. And I actually, in like a pause, so I like the idea of doing it every now and then, where maybe we can actually focus that and even have like an obsession for a day. But like in the New Testament, when it speaks of pray continually, to me, that's what praying continually is about, is that no matter what I'm doing, I have this other thing that I'm always focused on. Like that I might have something that I'm like fixated on in the back of my mind. So even if I'm watching, because I had the exact same experience. I'm watching something with my wife and I'm like, what is happening over there though? I know it's still happening, kind of a thing.
Yeah, now you're describing alcoholism. That's the thing. It's like, so I recently I had a whole ecology of character defects that I was wrestling with over the last few weeks, and they were all very petty, all accumulating to feel like eternal collapse. But like in the most subtle way, because it's like I know that it's BS what I'm dealing with, and yet it's still coming out sideways in my relationships.
Right.
And so I had to really wrestle with that. Now the way that I look at this little corner of the internet, for me, it's a lot of things. It's wonderful conversation, dialogos with people. It's relationships that I get to build. It's that mixed with obsession. It's that mixed with medium and technology, trying to wrestle with all these different things that are happening all together. Characters, personality, proplicity, the whole works. Authenticity, the inauthentic stuff, all of this. Voyeurism, attention grabbing behavior, self-seeking, all of that. And then contributing to being more useful. It's like this really jumbled mess of interesting, very 21st century centric qualities that we have to wrestle with, and we are out on the plank walking together, and very foolishly and yet very bravely. And so all of that is what is in my mind around this stuff. And this is why it's so valuable and important when guys like Peugeot and Vanderklay are saying, go to church, because there is a place where I can be grounded. Like I get to church on Sunday. I was an usher this week, and I also helped with communion. And I get there early, and I was able to have a conversation with my pastor and say, this week I had a shit week, man. I was like a dickhead here and there. I acted very poorly to people I care about, and I don't know why I was doing it. And yes, I could talk to my sponsor about that stuff too. And I have. It was really good to be grounded. And now I can't imagine floating off like a dust mote, with nothing to be grounded to in a community. And so it's very important that we stay connected in community on the ground, so that we can actually play here and wrestle poorly. So that's what I have on my mind. I know that's
Is there a problem? I think I want to leave on this question, which is the 24-hour thing, because you're talking about connection, and it's like, how do we make sure that the connection is a real connection and not just like this, like what you were comparing it to alcoholism and everything, where it's just like a thing which we can't stop, not a healthy outlet, where it's like becomes fixation, it becomes all this other stuff. It becomes almost like a supplement to real conversation, to real, like it could be a sentence came up in my mind. I don't even know if I fully believe it, but is this to friendship what pornography is to sex, or is podcasts like a kind of conversational pornography, for lack of a better term, where you're not fully in, like it's hacking those systems, it's heightening them, it's making it into almost like an addictive substance as opposed to the thing itself.
It's our inner culture binky. And yeah, all that stuff. But that is as old as time itself, I'm sure. We just, yeah, it's just a matter of, that's why I like the things around constraints, even if they're conversations with constraints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's the frame problem. Well, the frame problem is good. Just play with the frames, stay within them. We don't always have to jump frames. Anyways, good question to leave upon. Thank you all.
Yeah, this is good. Fun talking to you, Chad. Talk to everyone later. Bye.
Bye.
very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty. Covering yourself with the light as with a garment, stretching out the heavens like a tent. He lays the beams of his chambers on the waters. He makes the clouds his chariot. He rides on the wings of the wind. He makes his messengers winds, and his ministers a flaming fire. He set the earth on its foundations so that it should never be moved. You covered it with the deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the sound of your thunder they took to flight. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place where you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass, so that they might not again cover the earth. You make springs gush forth in the valleys. They flow between the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. Beside them, the birds of the heavens dwell. They sing among the branches. From your lofty abode, you water the mountains. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of your work. You cause the grass to grow for the livestock and plants for man to cultivate, that he may bring forth food from the earth, and wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart. The trees of the Lord are watered abundantly, the cedars of Lebanon that he planted. In them the birds build their nests. The stork has her home in the fir trees. The high mountains are for the wild goats. The rocks are a refuge for the rock badgers. You made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows its time for setting. You made darkness, and it is night, for all the beasts of the forest creep about. The young lions roar for their prey, seeking their food from God. When the sun rises, they steal away and lie down in their dens. Man goes to his work and to his labor until the evening. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Here's the sea, great and wide, which teems with creatures innumerable, living things both small and great. There go the ships and Leviathan, which you formed to play in it. These all look to you to give them their food in due season. When you give it to them, they gather it up. When you open your hand, they are filled with good things. When you hide your face, they are dismayed. When you take away their breath, they die and return to their dust. When you send forth your spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works. Who looks on the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountains and they smoke. I will sing to the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have being. May my meditations be pleasing to him, for I rejoice in the Lord. Let sinners be consumed from the earth, and let the wicked be no more. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Praise the Lord.